Have you ever played RimWorld's Sea Ice? Well, the sea ice biome is a harsh, unforgiving place. A region where survival is a daily struggle and the ice stretches endlessly across the horizon. But what if the ice wasn't there at all? In this video, we're diving into RimWorld's sea ice biome without the ice. How does it change the game? What new challenges, opportunities, and strange dynamics emerge when the ice melts away? Stick around to see how this simple twist on a classic biome reshapes everything from survival strategies to colony design. Let's find out together. It all begins with the standard crash-landed start. 3 colonists wake from their crypto-sleep caskets and their ship seems to be barreling towards the North Pole of some unknown RimWorld. Meet Bean, our main character. Don't get too attached to the other two. Let's just say they're walking food. Their ideology is space techno-cannibals. I know, very original. Without the ice, Bean and the others are exposed to the cold water of the Arctic. So his first priority is to construct foundations that stand above the water. This construction is resource intensive and is quickly draining what little steel and wood Bean landed with. Due to Chia and Leo's tough but fair working hours, they were beginning to show signs of mental break risk. Chia broke down shortly after and slaughtered the cat named Mason. She then decided to take off her clothing and stand out in the ocean water mysteriously. Bean was keeping Leo around to construct a wind turbine as he had a high construction skill of 8. Wind turbines would be the only reliable source of power in the early game for the shack on stilts, as solar panels were very space inefficient and it was dark for almost half the year. Leo's skills in construction were a fabricated lie. He botched the construction of the wind turbine, wasting 52 valuable steel. Leo was also affected by the mysterious ghost that sends you off into the cold waters of the Arctic Ocean.
Leo thinks you should give your faction a name. What should your faction be called? And he's like bleeding out in the ocean.
Leo's final wish before he perished in the icy waters was to name the faction and the settlement. So the faction we are now known as is the Federation of Cannibals, with the settlement being called Human Meat. Bean was researching in the darkness when the first raider showed up from the cancer unit. This would be how Bean obtains his ethically sourced meat from the defeated raiders who thought it would be a good idea to trek to the North Pole to raid a small shack in the middle of the ocean. Bean was grateful as these raids would be keeping him alive for the foreseeable future, until he developed the technology to build hydroponics basins. Bean waded over to the ship chunks that had crashed in the years before he arrived. He began deconstructing them for their materials. This yields him a decent amount of steel and components. Whilst Bean was sleeping, a man named Atkins falls from the sky. He's wearing a light leather parka and some gloves. These clothing items are essential to strip off him, as the deep winter temperatures in this region get down to negative 72 degrees Celsius. Before Bean arrives, Atkins dies of his wounds, tainting the clothing. Bean will still wear them, he'll just be a little upset about it. He built a shelf out of silver to save the little steel remaining in the stockpile. The shelf was for all the packaged survival meals his group had landed with originally. He was saving them for a time of food insecurity. He also made a stove to start cooking his own survival meals when he got the skills to do so. At least he would not have to eat raw food anymore. Another raid from the cancer unit. They would only send 1 raider, as Bean's colony wealth was lower than someone living in abject poverty. Oh well, this would keep Bean alive with food deliveries every few days. What did Bean do to these people? While the raid was in progress, a combat supply trade caravan arrived. Bean sold a few weapons, not adding to much silver, but every little bit helps in the early game. Food poisoning was the catalyst for Bean's mental fortitude to begin showing cracks. Bean broke down and went on a sad wander through the icy waters. Cassandra Classic must have known about Bean's instability and sent 2 bulk goods traders to Human Meat whilst he was wandering around. They are the most valuable traders in the sea ice biome, as they can sell building materials, steel, wood, components, advanced components, and all of the raw materials that this desolate ocean is lacking. By the time Bean snapped out of his sad wonder, the last trader showed up, a slaver from the strong union. They refused to buy any of the items Bean had, due to the dangerous temperatures on the map. The cancer unit was back. Again, a single raider. This time the raider would not even make contact with Bean, as it was negative 42 degrees Celsius outside. She died of hypothermia very quickly. It was time for Bean to attack the ancient exostrider and obtain the mechanoid transponder. He decrypted said transponder, and a quest prompt appeared, revealing the location of an ancient mechanoid ship in orbit. Bean can signal it to land nearby. The ship contains the remains of a long-dead mechanitor. Bean wants this mechanitor's mech link, so he himself can become a mechanitor. Though the ship contains a lone scyther. This quest will have to wait, even though it's only a single enemy. Scythers should not be underestimated. A transport pod crashed, containing a man named Alvin. Alvin would not last long, even indoors, as it was currently negative 73 Celsius. So Bean would dock to Alvin for some experience, then after he succumbed to hypothermia, Bean would butcher him and eat him. Now the temperature was so low that Bean's clothing was not insulating enough for him indoors, and he was starting to feel the effects of hypothermia. Bean scavenged through the tainted clothing pile left by previous raiders and found a cloth parka sitting in the ocean water. After that scare, Bean salvaged some of the foundations, his stool, and part of the wall's steel to make a heater. A few days later, an old soldier wanders in and wants to talk to Bean. Not the best time for a walk. He died of hypothermia not even halfway to the colony. Bean's task is research. It's the only thing he can do. Shuffle papers around mindlessly until a stroke of genius happens. A wanderer wanders into the settlement. It's a child soldier named Meister. This wanderer would make a perfect distraction for the scyther in the mechanoid ship. Bean installed the mech link into his brain, becoming a mechanitor. He also deconstructed the ship for some useful materials. The worst part about this location is that the waist-high water is very difficult to wade through. Humans and animals move at 30% of their normal speed. This water, combined with the now deep winter in the Arctic, makes trying to catch traders before they leave from the dangerous temperature very difficult.
No, please don't leave.
Immediately after the trader left, a forced weather quest appeared. It was a rainy thunderstorm for 19 days, with a reward being 8 Little World medicine, and free power for Bean's wind turbine for 19 days. During the storm, Bean had even more time to research than normal. He completed tidal generators, now for microelectronics. Bean's research was interrupted by a raid from a different faction. It was the turn of the Grey Hill Bandits. The raider was armed with a ranged weapon this time. It was only a derringer, still more dangerous than a steel club. Luckily, Bean's bolt-action rifle outranges it by quite a distance. Good thing Bean accepted that forced weather quest, as he somehow contracted the plague. That Glitter World medicine will be put to good use. A ruin of a colony appeared on the map. These ruins contain great wealth if you get there in time, before it has been pillaged by all the warring factions that congregate in the area. Bean packed a few of his survival meals, medicine, and a bedroll and set off to plunder. It would take a few days of trekking to arrive at the ruin. He arrives at the ruin, and there is a fight already taking place between many rival factions. Bean would hopefully sneak around stealing everything he can carry whilst the skirmish is happening. He found a sniper rifle and about 4,000 silver laying in the first stockpile he saw. But with the pigskins hot on his trail, he needed to loot fast. He grabbed the sniper rifle and as much silver as he could before fleeing into the snowy night. Sadly, he could not fully explore the ruin, as fighting a 1 vs 4 with not very good shooting skill was not advisable. Bean made it out of the ruin safely. He got 1,500 silver and a sniper in the raid. Bean's next venture is to spend all of his remaining steel, create a hand tailor bench. What textile would he use? Simple, his enemy's skin. A new colonist, Erison, from the same faction as Bean. That's good, there'll be no disagreements on the ethics of eating your enemies. Erison's traits are not very good, nor is her backstory, but she has a burning passion for crafting with 5 levels in the skill already. Bean would need a person like this to create income for the colony, as his skills in this profession were somewhat underdeveloped. Erison got to work immediately, creating cold weather gear like parkas, toques, and gloves. This new company for Bean was sadly short-lived. Erison turned out to be a traitor, posing as one of Bean's lost people. All she wanted was Bean's stack of components he had been acquiring over the years. She stole 50 components and made a dash for the border. Bad thing for her is that Bean was outside waiting with his sniper rifle. Bean shot and killed Erison eventually, and then went back to his solitary lifestyle. A raid from a Yitakin. This was a close one as Bean kept missing his shots with the sniper rifle, allowing the raider to get extremely close to Bean, not allowing him to take any more shots with his rifle. Luckily, Bean's movement speed was faster than the raiders by 0.01 cells per second, so Bean just ran circles around his land until the Yitakins succumbed to blood loss. Bean has spent so much time researching that he has become a genius and is now level 20 in intellectual skill. Cassandra, having a sick sense of humor again, sent a bulk goods trader when the temperature outside was -84 Celsius. They left the map immediately. A meteorite. Sadly only a sandstone one. If it were a compacted steel meteor, it would have propelled Bean's progress immensely, as they can contain thousands of steels sometimes. A raid from the cancer unit. A welcome sight as Bean's food stores were looking sparse. He fired a single shot and killed the raider. A transport pod crashes into the sea containing Pollard, an excellent crafter and researcher. He will be exploited for his skills in making Bean a good quality parka. A quest to look after a faction's goat named Raven. Little did they know, Bean would just accept the quest and eat the goat. Pollard then crafted a masterwork parka for Bean. It could insulate him from temperatures down to as low as -77 degrees Celsius. Pollard had served his purpose. His execution was carried out immediately by Bean. The first bulk goods trader in a long time. Bean may be able to reach it this time, even in a blizzard. Bean rushed through the near zero visibility to make it to the most important event in this colony's history. It had been 2 years of struggle to barely fit what little Bean owned in his tiny shack. The trader did not have any steel sadly, only stone blocks. Bean sold everything he could to be able to afford all of their building materials they had to offer. Now he could upgrade into a large shed after purchasing all the stone blocks the trader had. The total amount was around 2,200 blocks to build with. A few days later, Bean was almost finished hauling in his stone blocks when a meteor shower event happened. One of the 6 meteors was a steel one. Bean would now be able to construct a smelter, one of the key production buildings to have in the sea ice biome. Bean was low on food, so he accepted a quest to rescue a man named Lawman from a pack of starving wolves. This would trigger toxic fallout to occur, but Bean has a roof over his head, and the base construction can wait 8 more days.
I'm in danger!
Lawman was not long for this world. Bean was focused on building his new dominion. So focused, he worked outside in the toxic fallout. After working day and night, Bean's new base was complete. It had a high-tech research bench, smelter, an outside courtyard for a ground-penetrating scanner, and food storage outside, so the base can be heated finally. He also built another wind turbine. Those extra heaters and research bench would need a considerable amount of power. Bean accepts another forced weather quest, this time the reward being a small vanometric power cell. perfect for keeping the heaters on when there is no wind. The forced weather was a foggy sandstorm in the Arctic, somehow. Two shamblers approach in the middle of deep winter. They died again due to the temperature, pretty much immediately, even with their resistances to the cold. Another cancer unit raid. Nothing special, except a transport pod that fell during the raid containing a member of the Shattered Empire. Keeping the Empire happy is one of Bean's priorities, so no eating this one for Bean. Bean rescued the drop pod survivor Palatina and killed the raider. Palatina will leave once she has recovered from her injuries. Bean began building a bigger platform for the ground-penetrating scanner to fit inside the base walls. The ground-penetrating scanner actually works in this scenario as the sea ice has been removed and swapped with shallow water. The game must class shallow water as scannable, but only once bridges have been built over the water, or you might be able to use moisture pumps to drain the water and then scan it. So I guess in a way that this scenario is a lot easier in the later game than sea ice, as you are not solely relying on traders for resources. Before all the steel was gone, instead of a ground-penetrating scanner, Bean built a comms console and 2 trade beacons. This gamble paid off. A trader got in contact with Bean almost immediately after he built the comms console. Bean purchased all of the steel he could afford. Then he built the ground-penetrating scanner. All these new buildings need more power, so Bean built another wind turbine. He also constructed some hydroponics bases. It was time for him to stop solely relying on the unfortunate people and animals wandering into the colony for food. Bean's shack was beginning to fill up with stuff again, so it was time for him to make a dedicated building for hydroponics. This means more waiting for a bulk goods caravan to arrive, but it didn't take that long this time. He procured as many stone blocks as he could afford from the trader, and began laying out the building plans for the foundations. This project would take many months of building, the first of many harvests from the hydroponics. This new food security allows Bean to accept a second colonist into the settlement. He is a child named Ross. This quest comes with a catch though. A group of 3 raiders will be following closely behind him. Good thing for the trade caravan that is idling outside of the base. It was now summer in the Arctic. The temperatures were up to highs of around 13 degrees Celsius. Bean never thought he would have to build a freezer in the Arctic to keep his food from spoiling. Ross seemed to have a keen interest in a book Bean had gotten as a reward from a quest some years ago. The book Ross was reading was titled The Principles of Mechanized Infantry Development. Ross will now be known as Napoleon for obvious reasons. Napoleon, as well as being a military genius, had a passion for planting, so he would take care of the indoor rice fields. What's little Napoleon floor drawing now? A shuttle crash. Bean deconstructed the destroyed shuttle while the injured survivors were still flailing around in the water. He then finished them off after he was done. A raid from Penny's Mortars. This was a scary one for Bean and Napoleon, as the raider was high on go juice and had a makeshift shotgun. The raider got within range to use said shotgun and got a couple of pot shots off, injuring Bean and Napoleon. Bean ended up charging the raider, so he would have to stop shooting his weapon. Napoleon ended the altercation with an eventual devastating hit with his pump shotgun. A trade ship was passing by. Bean sold all of his rare leathers and recreational substances for a hefty sum of silver. Bean then decided to do an experiment with moisture pumps in an attempt to drain the surrounding water. If this would work, it would cut down massively on the quantities of building materials needed to expand the base. Bean and Napoleon were not the best of friends. I think Bean must have made a bad first impression on little Napoleon before his enlightenment to the path of archaeotechnology. Napoleon had a growth moment. Depending on what learning factor he achieved, he could become a very strong colonist in the future. But, as he was basically locked inside for half the year because of the temperature, Bean did not have high hopes. Napoleon gained a passion for mining and became a psychopath. News of an ice age have spread to human meat. The temperatures would drop down even more than they do normally, and that it would last for an unknown amount of time. A quest, Peachy and the Snow Hares. Bean accepts for the food. A raid. Bean got some good hits in with his sniper rifle, but the Neanderthal managed to almost close the gap and get into melee range. Napoleon was attempting to help with the shotgun, but his aiming skills were subpar. Bean takes the shotgun off the child and finishes off the raider. A man named Troy crashes from a transport pod. Bean goes out and rescues him. This activates the roles of Bean's ideology. Bean and Napoleon want a leader and a moral guide, bringing their moods down until they have one. But before any of that can be done, another raid follows behind him, a single raider still, thankfully. After the raid, Troy was no longer wanted around the colony, and he was locked outside to expire in the extreme cold. A passing orbital trader. Bean uses all of his silver to buy slate blocks, sandstone blocks, and steel. Bean then builds another deep drill to double the output of steel. Now Napoleon has someone to talk to whilst he is tasked with endlessly drilling a hole in the ground for minerals. Bean's plans for the base is to have 4 central hydroponics grow areas, and the base being built around them. With that, Bean laid out the foundations for the next room. In the middle of building the bridges, a raid showed up. They sent more than one person this time. Unfortunately for them, Bean's shooting skills are masterful, and he swiftly handled both of the attackers. An undersea earthquake destroyed one of the wind turbines and badly damaged the surrounding structures. Luckily, this event did not happen when Bean was poor, or it could have ended the colony. Bean renovated the base using the reclaimed land from the moisture pumps. As they were almost finished draining the surrounding water, this room would be for batteries and backup power generation to keep the heaters running, in case of no wind or raiders destroyed all the wind turbines. A solar flare during an ice age. All the heaters were offline now, the ambient temperature was free falling. Little Napoleon was beginning to freeze to death inside, as his clothing was not adequate enough to deal with the -70 below temperatures. Thinking fast, Bean built a campfire inside to keep the child from becoming that image from The Shining. A quest for another small vanometric power cell. 3 men hunters for that. They would freeze to death outside. In the midst of this quest, Napoleon became a teenager. He gained passions in shooting, construction, and plants. The trait choice was absolute garbage, probably because of him being locked indoors for most of his childhood. Even though Bean rescued Napoleon and raised him from an early age, they hated each other. Enough to start getting in social fights with each other. A combination of the ice age and being in the middle of winter meant the temperatures were now -113 degrees Celsius. Even masterwork parkas would not be enough to insulate from that. A pigskin raid. 2 of them. With Bean now being an excellent shot, this raid would surely go smoothly. Bean only needed to shoot twice. 1 bullet destroyed Stye's liver, and the other shattered Oinker's spine. A man named Lamp joins the colony. He is a fantastic doctor and has good crafting skills. Finally, the colony will have a decent crafter and a way to make more silver. It was time to move all of the hydroponic basins to the room next door. Please ignore the way I build hydroponics, it's the only way I can remember thanks to VQ. But with the increased colonist count comes increased raid sizes. 4 raiders, all melee thankfully, should be a breeze for Bean and his sniper. Sadly, Lamp revealed his true intentions. Not the best time to do so, as Bean and Napoleon were in the same room as him. A quest for honor from the Empire. They want us to hold a prisoner for 14 days. An exotic goods trader by the name of the Animal Transport Company contacts the colony. Bean answers and sells them some of the drugs the previous raiders have dropped. He purchases 54 components and 2 advanced components from them. Now that the colony has more than 3 hydroponics basins, it is time to begin the growth and manufacture of illicit substances for profit. The cost of running a deep drill. Only 2 bugs, thankfully. Bean and Napoleon can handle this easily. It was time to solely stop relying on wind for power. Underground, unrefined petrochemicals would be the colony's new power source. With that, Bean began constructing a deep chem pump jack, a deep chem refinery, and storage tanks for the fuels. The Empire has another quest for Bean, holding more prisoners. One of them, Grumps, happened to be a Hussar, a genetically engineered soldier. In a prison of this quality with 3 exits, a prison break would be inevitable, so Bean would hopefully keep them anesthetized to prevent breakouts. Another trader, a bulk goods one. They were selling components, so Bean got as many as he could. Because of the amount of prisoners the colony was holding, the raid sizes were increasing. 4 people with guns. Napoleon was in the minor break risk territory, so he snorted some of our product that was reserved for sale. Bean had finished researching industrial generators. These generators will produce 2,400 watts of power each. In the middle of their construction, the inevitable happened, a prison break. Bean equipped his right shotgun loaded with 12 gauge. He shot and killed the Grumps. This affected relations with the Empire slightly, as we somehow harmed their guests, even though they were prisoners. Volcanic winter. During an ice age? Well, 5 pigs decide to raid. Lucky for the colony, it was nearly at negative 100 degrees Celsius outside. They all succumbed to hypothermia. Bean finally began to build the last structure of the inner base. He finished all the construction and a solar flare hit the colony. It was negative 95 outside, so Bean built a panic room with a campfire inside it. Hosting an aristocrat for 6 honor. Bean will be a Psycaster in no time. Elpa arrives by shuttle and wishes to stay for 15 days. Bean and Napoleon still hate each other. Two polar bears wander into the map. It's a shame that neither Bean or Napoleon have the required animal skill to keep them tamed. The biggest raid yet. 6 hostiles, not all armed with firearms thankfully. It's also a good thing that they landed split up. It makes it easy for Bean to pick them off with his sniper rifle one by one. After that, a large group of shamblers approach the colony. They won't attack unless provoked, or if they spot a human. Bean built a transport pod launcher to send gifts to the surrounding factions in hopes of allying them in the future. An exotic goods trader approaches the colony. Bean purchases enough plasteel and gold to make a multi-analyzer. He can now research higher tech levels. Fabrication is first on the list. The shuttle arrives to collect Elpa. Bean has just begun his journey as a Psycaster. He has been granted a Psylink neuroformer by the Empire and receives it in a bestowing ceremony. Bean's daughter Williams arrives at the colony and requests to join. She is quite a good crafter, something the colony has been lacking for a long time. She got to work immediately creating recreational substances to sell for massive profits. Because of how cold it is, Napoleon has been locked indoors for most of the year. The only thing he could do is drill for resources, so the colony has an abundance of steel now. A cultist raid. They intend to summon flesh beasts. Too bad for them, there is no spot on the map for their ritual to take place. Bean, Napoleon, and Williams greet them outside. Now that the colony is back to having 3 pawns, they demand to have a moral guide again. Good thing Williams has a good social skill. Now for Bean to begin construction work on the outer rooms of the base. Assuming that the colony has just under 3,000 steel, Bean did not wait for the moisture pumps to complete their cycle and just took the extra cost of building bridges. Three versus 7. Raids are getting even larger now that the colony has 3 pawns. Bean rushes outside to construct a couple of mini turrets before the raiders make contact in the hope of evening the odds a little. The only issue with using turrets as a defense is that it becomes very resource intensive, using 3 components for each mini turret. As the colony does not have fabrication researched yet, it will be a temporary solution to an ever-growing problem. Raiders approached the colony and were greeted by a flurry of gunfire. After that scare, it was time to begin the manufacture of arms, an assault rifle for now, just to replace Williams's revolver. Bean constructed the walls of the new room. It was time for their very own bedrooms. It only took 6 years. Seeing that the moisture pumps were almost finished as well, Bean began to build another room. This one would be a temporary workshop for fabricating components and a laboratory for more high-tech research benches. During construction, a group of shamblers assaulted the colony. Bean deployed the mini turrets and waded out to the water with the others, waiting for the approaching group of undead. Seven more raiders almost immediately after dealing with those shamblers. With the turrets destroyed, Bean did not have much of a choice other than to hire some pirates to help defend the colony. Bean hired 13 pirates for a day. It cost 1,000 silver. The pirates left after the raid was complete, and then Bean built a fabrication bench inside that temporary room. Some caravan animals wandered into the colony. They had a few books. Another large raid. Bean would need to construct some better defenses as meeting them on the outside was getting more and more difficult. With the fires extinguished, a drifter approaches the colony and wishes to join. It's a dirt mole, with the transmutate steel ability. Welcome aboard, Grimace. She will need to be converted to the path of archotechnology. Napoleon and Williams are now lovers. This would hopefully improve relations between Bean and Napoleon, as Williams is Bean's daughter. A quest for the Empire. They want to land a damaged shuttle in the area. A group of raiders will try and kill the occupants. Bean accepts for honor. The Imperials could have fought off the raid with ease, as their weaponry was vastly superior compared to the tribal savages. The only trouble was the cold. One of the Empire's people was down due to hypothermia. Bean quickly loaded her into the rescue shuttle and completed the quest. Now that the colony's wealth was increasing exponentially, the people are starting to demand aspects of the transhumanist meme. They want neural superchargers. Without them, all of Bean's people will experience a -6 mood debuff. Old School Industries contacts the colony and wishes to trade. Bean purchases all of their components. The bugs are back, tunneling up the deep drill's bore. They are dealt with easily. A manhunter pack approaches the colony. Not a problem, Bean's people are used to being locked indoors. The polar bears were still waiting outside when the first mechanoid raid showed up. It was only a group of Militaurs. The bears should be able to handle most of them. There was only a handful of mechs left functioning. Bean and the others went outside to finish them off. Another raid in such a short period of time. A Shambler assault, 2 groups of 7, one in the north and one in the south. Bean would take on the southern group with the mini turrets, and the others would be able to handle the northern group of undead. A slave ship approaches after the Shambler assault. They want to conduct business. Bean buys a woman named Urgot. She is a Stoneborn. Stoneborn are naturally good at mining, construction and crafting. The trade-off being that they are aggressive and slow runners. Urgot will make a fine crafter. Napoleon and Williams have wed. Unfortunately, I was on 4 times speed and missed the ceremony. No mental breaks in the future for either of them. Time to do something with all the steel that Napoleon and Grimace have drilled from below. Wall upgrades, base expansion, and a shotgun tunnel was on the list of renovations, though they would take quite some time to complete construction. A group of travelers from the Libre coalition are passing by. Asla, Stingray, and Orange. Orange? That name reminds me of another Sea Ice playthrough I've seen before. Anyways, these 3 tribals are very good colonists. Bean will try and capture all 3 of them. After the somehow successful capture of 3 tribals, a royal tribute collector arrives at the colony at the same time as a raid does. Should be an easy defense. Time to lay out those plans for the shotgun tunnel that I mentioned earlier. The strong union arrives at the colony with an exotic goods trade caravan. Bean procures 6 advanced components and a triple-barreled rocket launcher from them. It was a bad time to be a beggar at the colony, as the strong union seems to be hostile towards any poor people. Shame really. One of them was a high mate. Bean wanted her to be the colony's warden. During the murder, a cultist raid appears on the map. Should be another easy defense with these bloodthirsty traders here. The last raider removed an ear, pinky, and thumb from Williams. You cannot underestimate those flesh whips from Anomaly. Time to begin making allies with the transport pod by sending neighboring factions meat that requires an acquired taste and old weapons. Bean sends it to the Strong Union as a means of paying back for their help against the cultists. Another trader, Bean consults with Albina from the White Quarry settlement. He sells all the colony's stock of exotic leather for 58 components. Bean is then contacted by the respectful Carrot Export Company for trade. He buys a tech print for jump packs. The Libre Coalition are back, not as travelers though. 13 enemies, all melee. They must be here to break out Orange and the other 2 I captured earlier. The only thing is that the colony has industrial weaponry now, and guns down half the attackers before they give up and flee. Base improvement time. A wooden billiards table would be a fine addition to improve the recreation of Bean's people. The colony's next generation is on the way. Williams is pregnant. With these raids getting larger and larger, Bean and Ergot resume construction on the various blueprints around the colony. Just in time as well, a drop pod raid lands directly outside the walls. An off-map mech cluster with an EMI dynamo. In the middle of winter? This could be the end of the colony, as temperatures were down to -65 Celsius, and my colonist's clothing was not adequate for prolonged exposure to the Arctic wilderness. So, Bean came up with a plan. He would use the drop pod to land on the same map as the mechs. Destroy the EMI dynamo, whilst bringing enough steel, components, and chem fuel to build another drop pod launcher on the map to send him back to the colony before freezing to death from the harsh temperatures outside. We'll see how that goes. The colony's core was now finished construction. The only thing left for the colony to do was to drain the rooms of water, to make room for flooring, as the temple and the throne room will require fine flooring eventually. Seeming that Williams has become so good at crafting, it is time for the first production specialist. This role gives bonuses of 50% construction speed, 50% crafting speed, and 1 level higher on items crafted. Williams will lose the moral guide role, but it would be a waste to not assign her to be a production specialist. Asla will take up the position of moral guide. Time to start planning the outer parts of the colony. First, a hallway that loops the entire way around the current structure. One day I can imagine this hallway pulsing like a lifeline, teeming with colonists flowing between their duties. The Libre Coalition is in contact with Bean again. They want him to save one of their caravans under siege by the Clade of Chetches. This quest will draw 12 tribal raiders to the colony, the reward being a Psylink Neuroformer. Bean accepts this offer. The raid will arrive in 5 days' time. In preparation for the upcoming raid, Urgot, one of the colony's melee fighters, has been lacking a weapon for some time now. A plasteel gladius should be sufficient. Shark is recruited. He is also a melee fighter. Another plasteel gladius. Welcome Orange to the colony. He will be assigned to mining and construction. With 6 chain shotguns, deep drill infestations have become more of a nuisance than a danger. A manhunter pack of polar bears. Perfect timing. Cassandra, thank you. This turn of events will make this easy raid even less threatening thanks to the bears. One of the smallest mech clusters I've ever seen. I was wondering what the interaction would be like with the shallow water everywhere. A meteor shower. The colony got quite lucky. A silver ore, uranium, and compacted machinery meteor landed. The last prisoner, Stingray, has finally been recruited. She had been hiding the fact that she was eccentric. Eccentric increases the research speed to 115%. Sadly, she is not good at researching, only construction and art. But at least the research skills is an easy skill to grind, it just takes a long time. The dealer transport company calls and offers trade. Bean sells the flake and all of the unneeded clothing. He purchases 500 wood and 54 components. A siege from pennies and mortars. As they could not build their mortars, the assault began immediately. One of the raiders is wearing an explosive belt. This is how deadly explosive belts are. Everyone that was caught in the blast was shredded. The worst off being Stingray. Her torso and left leg was shredded, as well as her left kidney being completely destroyed. She would die in 7 hours without immediate medical attention. After some rest, the colony's expectations went up. Now they desire their ideology's sculptures and the shrine room. The room must be all floored and have an impressiveness of 60 or more. This room with all the neural superchargers will be perfect. Time to move them again. Some more caravan animals wander into the colony. 3 camels. One of them is carrying 6 advanced components. On their way to exterminate said camels, Orange and Stingray became lovers. Another classic Cassandra move, a deep drill infestation with a tribal breach raid. Bean's people deal with the bugs as fast as they can. Then they run to the armory and grab an assault rifle to face the tribals rapidly approaching outside. Yoshi has become a child. He can now do basic tasks. Let's hope that he develops into a better colonist than Napoleon. It's about time to start making some flak helmets. I'm surprised that none of the colonists have been instantly killed from a headshot yet. A wanderer then requests to join the colony, Maya. So far every wanderer that I have accepted has turned out to be a traitor. So let's see how this one goes. We build a school desk and blackboards in the temple to hopefully assist in Yoshi's brain's development. Look, he's using it already. Now the people are wanting age reversal. Time to build some biosculpting pods. 11 man-hunting polar bears for 9 honor and an anti-grain warhead. The best part is, no action will be needed to complete this quest. As I expected, Maya turned out to be a traitor. Orange and Napoleon tried to beat her into submission, but they killed her by accident. After this excessive use of force, a solar flare hit the colony. Yoshi almost lost a foot. Not to worry, our best crafters will be working on bionic replacements in no time. Those polar bears finally wandered off the map, and the quest was completed for the Empire. Bean's acolyte ceremony is ready, he just needs a throne room now. Napoleon was starting to overproduce rice, so 1500 was sent to the Strong Union. They became our ally from the gift. Bean constructed his own jade meditation throne. He got excellent quality. The room now needs a floor and some braziers. Oh, and they gotta move the neural superchargers and biosculpting pods again. Another volcanic winter. At least the entire base is heated properly now. This would not slow the floor construction. The throne room was complete, and the bestower was signaled to land. The ceremony's quality was unimpressive. No bonus honor for Bean. Bean was granted a permit point. He chose Trooper Squad. Now Bean was starting to become a snob. He wants his room to be all floored and to have a double bed inside it. Only the best for Bean. His jade royal bed turned out excellent. Another mechanoid cluster. This one was very bugged. I'm not sure what's wrong with it, but the mechs were not hostile. They just wandered around the map. It's probably one of the many mods I have causing the issue. Nobles wish to visit the colony. Ellis wants to stay for 10 days and his mood needs to stay above 25%. Should be easy. He just needs a bedroom that satisfies his title. The colony quickly prepared a room, and Bean accepted the quest for 25 honor. Ellis arrives with 2 personal guards. They will not do any work. Shortly after they arrive, an LTEX meteor landed in the water outside. L-Tex is used to create Psycaster gear and prestige armor. The next construction project was being planned. This would be a dedicated workshop and storage room. The outer wall would be made of armored uranium, which have 2,000 hit points. This heavy-duty wall would slow down breach raiders to great effect. The Great Hallway was also under construction. This would be how Bean's people traverse between the various areas of the base. I know it's not very efficient, but it is going to look very cool when it's finished. I'd say base building is one of my favorite aspects of RimWorld. I try to make a different looking base every time I start a new colony. Construction has been halted. It seems that the only manhunters we get here are polar bears. It does not matter what animal they are, they will be gunned down regardless. A blizzard. This will affect shooting accuracy, but not much else. The deserters are here. They are a faction of fugitives that broke away from the Shattered Empire. They have the same tech level as the Empire, so their weaponry and armor is very good quality. They are here to assassinate Bean and the 3 royal guests that are staying at the colony. It was close quarters combat. One of them had some sort of weapon that penetrated multiple targets at once. The same guy rushed our guest and got him into melee combat. Bean's protectors then peeked him and began wildly shooting at him. They failed to realize he was wearing an explosive belt. He perished and vaporized himself, gravely injuring Asler, Napoleon, Williams, Grimace, and Ellis. Miraculously, everybody survived the explosion. Some are just missing a few limbs. I guess it's time for that bionics bench to fix all the missing body parts and organs. The Imperial shuttle arrives to collect Ellis. They leave and are satisfied with their stay. Bean is awarded 24 honor. He can now become a Baron. The bionics workbench would be put to use now, creating bionic arms and legs for the whole colony. As transhumanists appreciate being bodily modified. Orange and Stingray's marriage ceremony took place in the dining room. A quiet yet profound setting, forever marked by the shadows of Stingray's near-death experience. The chem fuel generators have all been moved into their final place. This would be the dedicated power generation room, until a better source of power was discovered. Time to drain the future workshop of water. This would take some time, hopefully a little less than the other rooms, as this one would be oversaturated with moisture pumps. Drainage of the second room has begun. I have finally made my decision where to put all the chem fuel generators and refineries. The White Quarry settlement shows up with a bulk goods trader. Bean buys their entire stock of components and cloth. A mechanoid cluster with a sun blocker begins to harass the colony. The sun is gone for half the year here anyways, so we can deal with this later. Then something called the Long Night occurred. Basically, a large interstellar object has blotted out a local star, resulting in a long-lasting eclipse. Ergot began crafting bionic enhancements, as transhumanists desire to be bodily modified. The first surgery was a success. Bean installed a bionic ear on Williams, after losing it to a raider. Eventually everybody in the colony will have bionic enhancements. Bean got in the drop pod and landed at the mech sunblocker. The drop pod landed on top of the mechs. Lucky that there was no proximity activator, or Bean would have been toast. Bean destroyed the sunblocker and began the trek home. Seeming that there would be many future surgeries, it would be a worthwhile investment to build a small hospital in one of the bedrooms. The sea ice was covered over with sterile flooring, and 5 hospital beds with intravenous drip stands were installed in the room. These improvements would hopefully increase the surgery success chance, as the doctors in the colony were not the most skilled. A manhunter pack of 53 Arctic foxes arrives at the colony. Bean just locks the armored outer doors. Vitals monitors had been researched, so the hospital was upgraded further, and more surgeries were conducted. Grimace, Orange, Stingray, and Ergot received various bionic replacements. As the foxes were around, Bean was thinking that it would be perfect timing for these operations to take place. He was wrong. A Yitkin pirate raid shows up, just as 3 of Bean's colonists were incapacitated from the surgeries. So he calls for immediate military aid from the Stoneborn clan nearby. The foxes and allies were long enough of a distraction for the pirates that Orange, Stingray, and Ergot were able to recover from their anesthetic and join in on the defense of the colony. The attack from the pirates was spread out and disorganized. Some of them were wearing explosive belts as well, so the decision was made by Bean to fight them on the outside with assault rifles rather than risk a close range encounter again with the shotguns. After that raid, Bean came to a realization that some sort of outer defensive position was needed for when the shotgun tunnel was not the ideal choice of defense. Once the pillbox construction was complete, Yoshi had a growth moment. He gained passions in shooting, plants, and social. The trait he got was kind. Already a better colonist than his father Napoleon, in terms of traits. Another man-hunting pack of polar bears. Nothing out of the usual here in the sea ice biome. The moisture pumps were almost finished draining the workshop, so the steel paving started to go down in preparation of its completion, though it would be some time before the edge bits of the room were done dehydrating. Whilst the last of the moisture was being drained, Williams got to work creating prestige marine armor and a prestige marine helmet. The celebration of augmentation was held. A chance for the colonists to unwind and relax a little after all their recent struggle. It was an unforgettable festival, leaving a lasting impression of a +16 mood boost for 6 days. The fabrication of Bean's prestige armor was complete. Williams managed to create a masterwork piece of armor. A Max Pack tribute quest from the Shattered Empire. They want to gift Bean with various supply crates, but this will most definitely attract deserter attention. Good thing for that new bunker that was built. Bean accepts the quest and 2 drop pods land. 1 supply crate and 1 bio-secured crate. Sadly, Bean cannot open the latter, as he did not stem from royalty. Only imperial nobles born into royalty can open these crates. Bean was halfway to the crates when the deserters showed up. A group of 9 attackers with advanced weapons and armor. 2 of the attackers had explosive belts on. The colony gathered out in the bunker and awaited the arrival of the deserters. They came into range of the assault rifles. Bean and the others fired a volley of bullets and struck the first raider. he vaporized instantly into a fireball. The blast also injured 2 of the other raiders standing nearby. Bean opened the supply crate and got a tech print for Imperial farming techniques. The new storage room was finished. In the main room was shelves, weapon racks, and apparel hangers, with an additional armored room for storage of explosive items such as chem fuel and excess mortar shells. A blind healer approaches the colony. Borkov wants to stay for some time. Bean was not interested in his abilities as he viewed them as inferior to his mechanical bionics. Borkov suffered a hypothermic death and let out a twisted howl. A large group of something is stalking outside the walls of the colony. The colony is on lockdown. No one is allowed outside of the armored walls. A knight of the Shattered Empire requests for permission to draw 42 man-hunting Arctic wolves to the colony, as they lost a scouting party to them. They are offering 76 Luciferium for the job. Another win-win situation for Bean. The wolves should reveal whatever is hiding outside, and he gets paid a massive amount of silver to do so. The Arctic wolves arrive and reveal that there were sight stealers lurking invisibly around the map. A male psychic soothe washes over the colony. Something else must be coming. A proper mechanoid raid also joins the party. Good thing for the wolves, they thinned out the mechs a little. The power generation room finished draining of water. Time to install the new chem fuel generators again, for the 3rd and final time. The workshop had also finished draining. 2 fabrication benches and new large versions of the machining table and tailor bench were constructed. The other old production buildings were also moved inside to the new workshop. The second sun lamp was placed in the old storage room in preparation for the hydroponics. The outer rooms were also planned. These may end up being colonist bedrooms. Williams was on fire, machining 2 masterwork assault rifles in a row. Cassandra mustn't have liked that, because she hit 4 of Bean's people with the plague, including him. Should be no issue now, as the colony has a small but excellent hospital. Volva Traders calls the comms console and has exotic goods for sale. As Bean has the plague, Asla answers the call. She buys recreational devices such as a telescope, tube television, and a modern computer. To free up some workload, nutrient paste will now be the main source of food for the colony. The old chem fuel generator room will now be the fridge/kitchen. A horde of 60 shamblers wanders into the map. It is key to keep everybody inside to avoid accidentally provoking them into an assault. Williams then created a legendary assault rifle, Bean's new weapon. The colony has just surpassed 10 years since its founding by Bean. The progress has been exponential ever since Bean had researched and constructed deep drills. Bean's prestige marine helmet was complete. It was only good quality, unfortunately, but Bean does look quite cool in his new samurai helmet. The Strong Union, our allies, showed up and wanted to exterminate the shamblers that were wandering around the map. This would be quite bad as they could trigger them to assault the colony. Lucky for the colony, they decided to leave the map from the dangerous temperatures just before they were in range. As they were leaving, more deserters drop-podded in. Another three-way raid. One of the deserters foolishly approached the group of 20 allies waiting to leave the map. He did not last long under fire. Bean and the others just picked off a few of the stragglers that the shamblers did not beat to death. Another temporary home for the neural superchargers and biosculpting pods. For now they would be in the generator room. The walls were torn down. This new, massive room would be the future rec and dining room. Oh, and a silver grand table was built. It cost 2,000 silver and 10 gold, but I forgot to hit record before starting. 33 tribal breach raiders from the Labray Coalition. The colony idles in the water, waiting for the first raider to come into range of their assault rifles. They begin to gun down the first few unlucky souls. Then the Strong Union, our ally, shows up again to help defend against the raid. Though they didn't really do that much, as Bean and the others outranged most of them with their superior weaponry. The tribals fled after losing a few more members of their clan. A forced weather quest for skill trainers in plants and, more importantly, medical skills. This will force the weather into a rainy thunderstorm around the colony for 12 days. Ergot, our best doctor, will be able to significantly boost her medical skills, hopefully avoiding botched surgeries in the future. Ergot put said skills to the test by performing a quadruple bionic replacement on Bean's arms and legs. All she had left was the right arm. She failed the surgery on Bean, nearly killing him in the process. Another plague plagued the colony. Only 4 colonists will be out of action for a few days. Yoshi is now 10 years old. He gained passions in intellectual, mining, and melee. The trait he obtained was martial artist. The cancer unit was back after a long hiatus. This time they brought the big guns. A doomsday rocket launcher. Bean's defensive tactic would have to change, as the rocket launcher has a massive range. So Bean and the others would hide behind the doors and wait until the Rocketeer was in range of Bean's psychic shock ability. This would instantly down him, and there would be no chance of a discharge of this deadly weapon. The raid was dealt with, and it became apparent that an outer wall was needed for raids like these. The plans were drafted, and this is the final piece of the colony's design. A Neanderthal tribal raid. These can be quite dangerous, as all the raiders are much tougher than normal baseliners. They can soak up volleys of assault rifle fire like it's nothing. One of the tribals, Combo, was downed, and she was good at mining and construction. Another perfect deep drill operator. Bean captured Combo and took her into the Room of Despair. Combo may not like this, but that's the point. Asla then experienced an inspiration. She will successfully recruit a prisoner. Good timing on that. Asla recruited Combo. It turns out that she has a chemical interest. Asla began a conversion ritual, Combo being the initiate. The ritual was a success, bringing Combo's certainty down to 2.1%. The Shattered Empire has informed us of a deserter camp nearby to the colony. The Empire is planning an aerial assault on the camp with 6 of their personal guards. They request an additional 4 soldiers to assist them in the attack. Bean accepts this quest for 9 honor. Another weird mech cluster. They sleep so soundly. Time to awaken the sleeping beasts and bait them into the tribute collector from the Empire. They put up a good fight, but there were not enough of them to defeat the mechs. They now idle around the spot where they landed, a natural defense from raids. The dining room needs a floor. It shall be carpeted with the hex tile pattern. This would be a long process as the room is massive. It would take around 10,000 cloth to fully carpet this lavish room. Rare thrombos wander into the map. Bean leaves these majestic beasts to their own accord. One of them self-tames. Sadly, none of Bean's people have the skills to handle this wise creature, so it will return to the wilderness eventually. A group of deserters is attempting to assassinate Bean again. Their efforts were in vain. They were either killed or captured. Bean captured 3 of the deserters for rehabilitation and re-education to hopefully integrate them into the colony in the future as they had strong traits or skills. The Empire contacts Bean with a proposal. One of their members was caught in bed with the wrong person. They wish to send them here for 19 days until this scandal has blown over. Bean accepts this quest for 7 honor. Thrombo 1 is starting to get annoying, eating stacks and stacks of food. Bean regretfully slaughtered the majestic creature. An orbital trader. Bean trades all of the colony's silver and jade for 500 wood and 55 components. This wood will be used to make a harpsichord and piano for Bean's throne room. Shark created a masterwork harpsichord. Bean's throne room will now be dignified during his Baron ceremony. The ceremony was unimpressive, but Bean is now a Baron of the Shattered Empire. Bean wants a larger room and royal furniture now. This is bad news for Yoshi and Grimace, as they have to vacate their room due to Bean's snobbishness. Bean has access to more permit points and a persona-bound weapon. The weapon will arrive later, as the Empire was not ready with it yet. A siege from Pee-wee. Another prisoner. Mia is an excellent doctor. As the colony grows, the need for a dedicated doctor becomes more pronounced. Bedrooms are under construction in the newly drained section of the colony. They would be in desperate need, with all of these soon-to-be recruits Bean is holding in prison. Bean claims his persona weapon from the Empire. It's an Eltec staff of excellent quality. Two traders arrive in quick succession. One of them is an orbital trader. They are selling slaves. Bean saves a person called Babanga. He is excellent at mining, another deep drill operator. Some of the traders in the caravan that arrived were undercover deserters, trying to poison the colony's food supply. Bean noticed them before they could accomplish their mission. A gunfight ensued. One of them was downed. He was captured, but not for recruitment. His implants and organs would be harvested. Stingray would be getting his kidney. Asla would be getting his advanced bionic eye. Alakio is converted. He can be released from prison now. He is not really good at anything, but his traits is why Bean captured him. Tough, iron-willed, and jogger, he will be an expert soldier. A short while later, Pasas is recruited. He is passionate about researching and mining, just not very good at it yet. The deserter prisoner finally expired after Alakio harvested his last remaining kidney. The shuttle is here to collect Aloe. He was being held for 19 days for 7 honor. With the quest completed, Bean can now become an Archon of the Shattered Empire. During Stingray's kidney transplantation, a manhunter pack of polar bears arrives. The throne room was switched places with the temple to make a more symmetrical looking base. After 11 years on the Rim, the colony will finally have its own dedicated research laboratory. Look at how far the colony has come over the 11 years of its existence. You can see the original bridges on the floor, from a fishing shack on stilts to a vast megabase using reclaimed land in the middle of the ocean. Yoshi has become a young adult. He has a burning passion for shooting, planting, and gained a passion for cooking. The trait choice was quite horrible. No positive traits to choose from. There was only one neutral trait to choose, so he became a couch potato. He now prefers to watch TV for recreation, instead of doing other activities. The colony's generator room was beginning to become so cramped that cave divers would soon begin showing up, thinking they had discovered a new expedition site, so a new power source would need to be found. Asla directed her research towards harnessing the power of uranium using nuclear reactors. One reactor would provide 20,000 watts of power. More bionic replacement surgeries were scheduled. Soon, every colonist would have 2 bionic arms and legs. Imperial travelers are passing by. Not a good time, as there are polar bears still idling outside. A metaphysical fiesta opportunity arose. A human meat platter was required for the ritual to take place. The colony gathered in the shrine room and began feasting on the platter. Once complete, the image of meat, the altar, was disrespected, upsetting the colonists due to the massive pool of blood that was coating the floor. The quest for nuclear power was complete. Now all was needed was a room to house the reactors. This corner would be a perfect location. It could hold 3 reactors in the future. Construction would start after the party was finished that Stingray threw. Baby Williams has become a child. He will be now known as Pex. All of this technology researched, and yet Bean is the only one with some armor on. Marine helmets and armor was queued for production on the fabrication tables. The first Imperial trader. Bean buys himself some brain implants. He buys a psychic reader, which increases his social skills, and a psychic sensitizer, which increases his psychic sensitivity, making him a much better psycaster. The reactor room's walls were coming along nicely, although Bean did trap himself inside the room. The recreational room's carpeting was 2/3 finished. So far this has taken over 10,000 cloth to do. The rec room needs more recreational items inside. A dartboard, roulette table, poker table, upright piano, arcade machine, and 2 punching bags were constructed inside. The deep storage room was finished draining of water, now for the satisfying task of concreting the room's floor. Due to a labour shortage in the crafting department, marine armour was taking too long to produce. Full flak armour would be a good stopgap until the colony has more crafters. A Neanderthal raid, a perfect opportunity to capture some more crafters. Bean used his psych-casting abilities to psychically shock 2 raiders into a coma, the risk being a small chance of brain scarring. They then try to flee. Bean chases them with his jump pack, shocking 2 more into a coma. For a total of 4 prisoners: Ambas, Biko, Rigo, and Falcon. As they are Neanderthals, they tend to be more aggressive. Falcon and Biko got into a fight, resulting in the death of Biko. The next room was scheduled for draining. It was saturated with 43 moisture pumps. This was done to prevent the year-long wait, as these devices are slow to complete their cycles. It would cost 172 components to construct all of the pumps, a hefty cost for quick progress. These plans would be put on pause until the flak armor was complete. A mechanoid raid. They were dealt with quite easily, as the assault rifles outranged centipedes by a few tiles. It was not all easy, as Pex had managed to sneak outside during the second part of the defense. He was chased by a scyther into the hallway and stabbed to death by it, while Shark, Ergot, and Combo were on the other side of the door, waiting in an advantageous position to fight the scyther. Bean buries Pex, and his funeral was held immediately after his death. The colony now produces so much steel that the haulers do not have time to remove it from Babanga and Ergot's bedroom. They are sleeping with piles of steel on their beds. A shooting position was planned. This would be on all 4 sides of the base. A group of 5 Thrumbos wander into the colony. This time, they are not allowed to leave, as they are too valuable. Their skins are made into grand rugs for the throne room. More satisfying concreting of the now complete reactor room. The heart of the colony, the hydroponics room's lights were changed to green. The first nuclear reactor was built and underwent testing. It was slowly heating up the room, so the side exposed to the ocean was lined with vents to cool off the reactor with the Arctic winds. Bean calls the bestower, and the ceremony for Bean to become an Archon begins. The ceremony concludes, and it is of grandiose quality. Napoleon's anxious trait can work for the better sometimes. He broke down and had a panic attack. Napoleon's breakdown caused a permanent character change, resulting in him becoming a groundbreaker, giving him a 20% bonus to construction speed and mining yield. Those two Neanderthals, Falcon and Ambas, have both been recruited. They will hopefully help alleviate the component shortage. The dining room's fine carpeting was finally complete. The workshop would need to be expanded to add an additional fabrication bench for Ambas. As Falcon and Ambas were both crafters, they immediately received their bionic replacements in the arms and legs to improve crafting efficiency. They then went through initiation to become production specialists. Their skills would need to be worked upon, but they would soon become master crafters. The cancer unit decided to besiege the colony. They split up and begun attacking the outer walls. This was a perfect opportunity for Bean and his soldiers to strike at the smaller elements of the raiding force. A bulk goods trade ship was overhead. Bean sold all of the used clothing for 2,000 silver. The next building space was drained of water, and bedrooms were planned. The rooms were completed, and fine carpeting was planned for all current and future bedrooms. Williams went into labor again. She gave birth to a healthy child named Eve. Hopefully Eve would have a better fate than Pex did. Various construction projects were undertaken around the colony. The old bedroom walls were torn down and the prison demolished to make fine bedrooms for the royalty ending. The hospital was expanded upon. A mega-screen television was assembled in the dining room. Bean built his Stellic Jade meditation throne of masterwork quality. The outer shell of the base would be planned, as well as the draining of the lower rooms. Williams fell pregnant for the 4th time. All of these wall sections and moisture pumps required large amounts of steel and uranium, so a massive deep drilling operation is running 24 hours a day. These activities disturb the bugs a lot. They surface in the workshop. The colony's armor, and more importantly, the last resort weaponry, is kept nearby to the infestation. If they manage to destroy the Doomsday rocket launcher, the entire room will be vaporized. The southern bedrooms are carpeted. A combat supply caravan arrives. Bean sells all of the obsolete weaponry and armor, adding up to quite a lot of silver. Bean's vision was fulfilled, at least to an outsider. The outer walls are now complete. 3 rooms remain to be drained of water. The colony's wealth is now $860,722. After dealing with yet another deep drill infestation, 7 of Bean's colonists caught sensory mechanites. This ailment can work in favor of the colony, improving upon sight, hearing, talking, manipulation, and sleep fall rate at the cost of pain. 20% pain, making the colonist infected pass out from pain more easily. All of these moisture pumps consume a lot of power, so a second reactor was built, providing another 20,000 watts of power. Bean, thinking that 2 reactors would be enough to power the colony, deconstructed the final chem fuel generators remaining, ending the petrochemical age of power generation for the colony. 2 reactors was not enough. A third was constructed. Finally, the colony has enough power. A mech cluster with the toxic spewer. Not much of an issue. It was still dealt with swiftly. Bean and Ergot landed at the site, and Williams went into labor. The toxic spewer was destroyed. During Bean and Ergot's journey back to the colony, Williams gave birth to a healthy child. Her name is Holly. Vagabonds request 43 herbal medicine. Some of them are skilled miners and crafters, so Bean persuades the tough decantate, Winyoit, the boring, and Peter. Peter would be used for his organs, as the boring has major kidney disease. A mechanoid breach raid attacked the colony. Not as scary anymore, as all of the fighters have sufficient armor and jump packs to flee when in range of the centipedes. Falcon and Ergot are sent into the biosculpting pods to repair their brains from Bean's attempt at a non-harmful capture. They will be cured of all ailments in 10 days. The conglomerate of docile mechanoids triggered friendlies from the Strong Union to land in drop pods and vanquish their enemies. Given the Strong Union's poor opinion of beggars, the outlook for the bulk goods trader idling outside the walls was grim. The final hydroponic arrangement was queued for construction, and the old bridges were removed and replaced with concrete. The Strong Union was back, with a combat supplier. They were willing to accept old armor for 10 anti-grain warheads. Within the dwarven caravan was a pair of deserters. Seeming that the dwarves are hostile to almost anybody, once they revealed themselves, they were gunned down by the caravan. They managed to plant a bomb nearby to the colony. Lucky that the firefight occurred, or they could have sneakily planted a bomb without anybody's realization. Bean defused the bomb without incident. A drop pod raid from Penny's Mortars. This time they brought a few war caskets with them. War caskets are essentially dreadnoughts from Warhammer 40k. They contain a colonist entombed inside a suit of armor and cannot partake in any work activities. They are robotic and only seek combat. Once surrounded, they are quite weak though. The Royal Ascent ending required a bedroom for the Stellarch. The room requirements were preposterous. The room would need to be 140 tiles or bigger, have an impressiveness of 200 or more, all fine floored, have a royal bed, end table, dresser, 6 drapes, 8 plant pots, 2 armchairs, 2 large royal rugs, 2 grand royal rugs, 2 candelabras, 2 small sculptures, and a royal mirror. With all of those items queued for construction, the drilling team decided to extract the steel below the ice before building this luxurious room. As the risk for infestation was large with 7 drills running. Sure enough, it happened. The bugs are here. The cancer unit was back, a large raiding force. Bean used his psi-casting abilities to cause mass insanity, which propelled the raiding party. Unfortunately for him, a stray bullet penetrated his helmet, severely damaging his brain. Bean was essentially a vegetable. He was sent into the biosculpting pods for a bioregeneration cycle. The final 2 rooms were yet to be drained, so the blueprints were placed. But before any of the pumps could be constructed, the sound of drop pods could be heard. The pods crashed through the roof of the hospital. Diana was still inside, suffering from paralytic aphasia. Lucky for her, the pirates left her alone. They instead destroyed most of the buildings inside the room. Seeming that the former hospital was a little small, half of the newly drained room was floored with sterile tile in preparation for the new hospital. A mechanoid breach raid interrupted. Without Bean to stun them, this could be a tricky one. The hospital was now finished construction. It just needed a bit of rearrangement. Another raid, this time a large group of Neanderthals. Seven of them would be captured after this one-sided firefight. There was no dedicated prison yet, so they were temporarily held in an empty room used to store old worn clothing and armor until a new prison was constructed. The fate of the prisoners was either to be sold to the Empire for honor, or to be harvested for blood and organs. One of them would be spared, Seahorse. She was a sanguine jogger. Sadly, she was beaten to death by her fellow inmates after going into a berserk state. 6 more Thrombos wandered into the kill zone. They would make perfect rugs for the Stelarch's bedroom. The prison was constructed. It was quite cramped, but that doesn't matter. An industrial complex trader buzzes the comms console and wishes to conduct business. Business they will get. Bean buys 501 components and a mechanist ship. To afford this, he sells 1,000 chemfuel and all of the colony's packaged survival meals and lavish meals stored. The mechanist ship requires a bit of space, so another smaller landing zone was constructed for Bean's very own ship. Williams is pregnant again. The final rooms have finished draining of water. With all of these deep drills running, raw materials have built up, so the outer wall can begin construction. William's 4th baby, Holly, has become a child. A cancer unit siege. Three more prisoners were captured after their comrades were gunned down. The next section of Outer Wall is under construction. A black market orbital trader wishes to buy all of the colony's obsolete armor, clothing, and textiles. In return, Bean purchases 2 tech prints for cataphract armor. All of the armor sold totaled to 36,971 silver. Kit is recruited. She is a good doctor and researcher. The last half of the outer wall was planned. "200 shamblers assault the colony. As they are so tough to kill, the confrontation is long and drawn out. In real time, the fight took about 15 minutes. All of the rotten corpses left behind are causing problems. The rot stink is causing Bean's colonists to get lung rot. Three-quarters of the wall is complete. Not much longer until the final wall section is finished as well. Williams is in labor for the 5th time. A healthy child is born. Another girl named Joanne. Unlucky Napoleon. The final section of Armored Uranium Wall is complete. Bean's vision had come to fruition. A bustling colony of hard-working pawns, each toiling away under the weight of purpose, unaware whether they were building a future of prosperity or merely fortifying the walls of their own captivity in this endless oceanic world. The necessary infrastructure was now in place. With lavish amenities, the High Stellarch Koskos would surely enjoy his stay. The final quest, Royal Ascent, was available. Other factions will view this as an opportunity to kill Koskos, and will attack with great intensity over 12 days. The first of many raids to come. It's a mechanoid breach raid. Within the first few volleys of mechanoid fire, Napoleon's brain was struck. He crumpled like a sack of potatoes. He was evacuated by combo. After the chaos of the first raid settled, Bean carried the severely brain-damaged Napoleon to a biosculpting pod for repairs. He failed to realize that the pod's cycle was going to complete in 13 days, whilst the Royal Ascent quest had 11 days until completion. Before the conundrum of Napoleon's situation could be pondered, another raid arrived, a group of pirates. The mortars were used to soften them up before contact was made. They were not very effective, apart from a precision strike upon a ball. The mortars were being rearmed from the previous attack when a sieging party arrived from Piwi. After that siege, a drop pod raid from Penny's mortars landed within the walls, 2 of which landing inside the workshop. A mass of Neanderthals gathered to the west of the colony. It was time to unleash the stockpile of anti-grain warheads against the relentless raids. These savages would be bathed in hellfire. The shell landed in the center of them, instantly vaporizing more than a third of the raiding party. The next mechanoid raid landed in 3 groups. One of which had 3 Diaboluses tightly packed together, a perfect target for another strike of devastating force. Only one was left standing, barely. It had 16% health left. During this mechanoid confrontation, the cancer unit arrived to take advantage of the 3-sided attack. They failed to see 1/3 of the mechs get vaporized and continued on with their attack. Orange fired another shell, obliterating half of the attackers. After witnessing this horrendous show of power, they fled in panic. The other 2 groups of mechs then attacked and were dealt with traditionally. Another 3-pronged attack from mechanoids. The anti-grain shells were worth their weight in gold. They had alleviated so much pressure from these relentless raids. The Neanderthals were back. This time, they planned to breach the walls of the colony. Lucky for the colony, the last group of mechanoids intercepted the tribals. After the mechs had softened them up, the kill team finished them off. They did manage to breach a sizable hole in the outer wall, but it was repaired quickly. Not long after, a horde of 200 shamblers approached the colony. Another good defense from raids. That theory was put to the test when a map-wide drop pod raid from Pee-wee landed. The stragglers were picked off that landed inside the walls, and the shamblers would hopefully do the rest. The final raid arrived after the shamblers did their best work. Unlucky for the raiders, the colony still had a small stockpile of anti-grain warheads left. 2 plus the shells contained in the artillery. It would be enough to wipe their existence off of this world, and it did. The final quest was 2 hours away from completion. After years of struggle, Bean would finally escape this hellish frozen wasteland of shallow water. The shuttle then descended, ready to collect High Stellar Koskos, Bean and his people. Before stepping inside, Bean took one last look at how far the colony had come. The hardships, the triumphs, it all led to this moment. With a deep breath, he turned away and boarded the shuttle, leaving it all behind. But not everyone left. Inside the regeneration pod, Napoleon remained, watching as everyone he knew and loved abandoned him and his infant daughter. Trapped within the cold entombing pod, resentment took root. A burning hatred for imperial snobbishness was forged in the silence of his exile. How will the story of Napoleon and his child continue? This video took way too long for me to produce. The script ended up being over 13,000 words, as well as many months of editing. I express my greatest gratitude to you if you stuck around to see the story of Bean and his people. Thank you for choosing this video to watch. I'll leave you with a time-lapse of the colony's growth over the years. This time-lapse is like 20,000 images, I'm pretty sure, or over 20,000 images. And the amount of storage it took up on my hard drive was like 140 gigabytes of JPEG files. Anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out.